So moving on, up last we have the last session for which I have pleasure calling upon stage Mr. Armin Briegel and Mr. Mischa van der Ven, who are having combined decades of experience, who are going to talk about build the best onboarding experience with setup checklist. Over to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
So great to be here. Mischa and I just realized that we've been working together for years, and this is the first time we're co-presenting, which, let's see how that works out, right? My name is Armin Briegel. I'm a senior consulting engineer for Jamf. I work in the EMEA region, and the E in that EMEA stands for India, so I'm really, really proud and happy to be here.
My name is Mischa van der Ven, manager of the consulting engineer team in EMEA, also with an eye from India, so I'm also working in this area. This is my second time Mac admin India, so I'm honored that you have me back. And like Armin said, this is literally our first time presenting something together. So I'm a little bit nervous here now because, he's a really good presenter, and I don't think I'm not. But anyways, what we want to do here today is a little bit closing the day with less heavier material, but with something what we all are doing, and that is with an enrollment workflow in your organization, right? And I think we all do this, right? We enroll our devices into an MDM server. We go over the setup, we do the user creation, and then lands on the desktop for productivity, so the end user can do their work. And that's what we're doing it for, right? Enabling the end user. So the better we enable, the better they are, or the happier they are. So what can we do during the setup is being very transparent. So I think you all know that we built Setup Manager, and with Setup Manager you can control the workflow, but also you can be very transparent on the workflow, telling the end user what we are doing. And that's very important, because if you install a big installation and you don't share what you're doing, the end user just simply can turn down the machine and your machine can be in limbo state. What we also can do is making sure that the security applications will land on the device, so you'll be compliant. And that's even before the user is on the device. Let's move over to the user. What can we do there? So we can connect the user with your identity provider, with Jamf Connect, or with Platform SSO, right? We need to protect your user credentials, everything there. And once the user is on the device, they want the productivity, and what is the connection to us as IT? That is Self-Service Plus. And that is what we called the user experience, this flow. But you, as IT, have sometimes also things to do. Because if we look at it, there's the pre-provisioning. That is IT job. What we can do, we can pre-provision the device. Who of you are still pre-provisioning devices for their employees or C-level people? Yeah? I think we all do sometimes, right? But there's never an opportunity to say to your C-level people, hey, listen up, can I get your email and your password? No, that is a digital identity, and that needs to be secured. That's personal. So in the ideal world, what Apple wants to do is literally send the box to the end user, right? And the end user can do it themselves. So let's have a look how that looks like, how we envision that with Setup Manager. We all seen this screen, right? You open up your device, you connect to the Wi-Fi, and you get enrolled into your Jamf Pro environment. Here we install Network Relay, making sure that the connection is secured to your company resources, and also making sure with device attestations that the macOS is not tampered with. Once we installed all the applications, and with the enterprise install command, we install Setup Manager, what you see here. And here we be very transparent to the end users, saying what we're doing. So in this example, we set the time zone, we installed Google, we are gonna install Teams, we do Trust for our ZTNA solution, and we also have Jamf Protect for security. And once this is all installed, we're going to report it back to Jamf. And remember, this is all before the user got created. And let's go to the next step. The next step is the user creation. And in this demonstration, you see we use Platform SSO, simplified Platform SSO during enrollment, to enable your user directly for your IDP, in this case it's going to be Entra, on your device. So your account is literally connected to your identity provider from the get-go, right? I can log in and use passkeys, whatever you want. MFA is all being set and native in the system. And that's what we want to do. And of course, once that is registered, we need to create a local account. And now you're going to say, Mischa, but you just connected your identity with the device. So why do I need to do a password again? Well, we do everything in a secure enclave. And unfortunately, if the device is disabled, you need to unlock the secure enclave, and that's what we do with the password on the device. So we still need to do that. And from this momentum, we go to the desktop. So, manage identity and security. That is what you just witnessed, and that's what we do for a long, long time. I think Apple is promoting that for a long time on the website as well. And I think those are the three pillars what we need to think about. Management, we have security, we talk to and make sure that the device is compliant, and identity is the new space with Platform SSO what we're working on.
There's a bunch of enrollment options that I want to highlight. And some of these aren't new, but I see them not being used very often in deployments. Sometimes it's just people aren't aware of it. Sometimes it is because that feature came out maybe 2 years ago, but you had to wait for your fleet to reach a certain level of macOS to be able to use it, and then it fell out of our mind. And now it's 2 years later, and we still haven't enabled this. So I think these options will definitely improve your enrollment workflow if you're not already using them. The first one is Auto Advance, and that has a few very specific uses, but especially if you're in classrooms, labs, kiosks, shared devices where you really don't want a person sitting in front of them, you can enable Auto Advance, and when that device enrolls while being connected to Ethernet, it will click through all the dialogues that are there, even the ones in the very beginning before the enrollment dialogue that we can't click through normally, but Auto Advance will click through.
I didn't do anything. Step away.
This works really well. It takes a minute to kick in. And when it kicks in and you're sitting at the demo machine that you're testing with, do not touch the keyboard or the mouse.
I didn't touch the keyboard. I swear.
Yeah, right. Do not touch it, otherwise the Auto Advance will stop and you'll have to do it all automatically. But it works really well. We can enforce minimum OS version. In the pre-stage, you can set this device should be on macOS version X before it even can enroll. And then the user will get a nice message after clicking the enroll button that they need to update. And they will download and install the update so you can be sure that they are on a certain level of macOS before even enrolling. After the enrollment cycle and the reboot, the device will basically start over. It's not enrolled yet, but the enrollment screen will pop up, and then the workflow will pass on. This actually works with Auto Advance. So if you want a fully automated workflow, you can put a device on the Ethernet, it will update, and then Auto Advance through the rest of the enrollment. If you're doing this on a large scale, again, especially schools or other education classrooms, you really want a caching server to get those downloads sped up. FileVault. FileVault is very important. We want FileVault enabled on our devices. macOS devices are very secure at rest, but we want that extra security that FileVault gives us. And we do not want to give the user a chance to opt out of it. What we want them to see is maybe this. This gives them their personal recovery key. Maybe we don't want to show this at all, because they'll just take a picture of it or write it down, because the recovery key is stored in Jamf as well. So we can disable this screen, but if I don't show this screen on how it looks like, I don't have anything to show. Because if we enable FileVault in the pre-stage, which works since macOS 14, then the user doesn't get a choice. FileVault will be enabled. They can just maybe see the recovery key and click continue, or they see nothing, and FileVault is automatically enabled at first user creation. And they don't have to do an extra logout or restart either. It is just enabled in Setup Assistant. Another feature that was added just earlier this year in 26.4, so this is a new feature, is that Apple allows us to manage Migration Assistant. Migration Assistant has always been very complicated for managed devices because the migration system will copy certain configurations and certificates from the old client device over to the new client device, which may break the enrollment, overwrite certain important certificates and break the enrollment. And we haven't had a way to control that until 26.4, where we can send down a declaration where we say, always migrate these particular files or these particular folders, never migrate these particular files or these particular folders. Again, aside from a message that certain aspects of the migration are managed, the user doesn't see anything. The migration assistant, when being used, looks pretty much the same. Certain things might be selected by default or grayed out and blocked by default. We can set this up in a blueprint on Jamf Pro, and because blueprints update out of cycle, we don't have to wait for Jamf Pro updates to push new blueprints down to Jamf Pro. This was there fairly quickly after the release of 26.4. So with Migration Assistant, we can control what gets migrated and what doesn't get migrated. And since we're talking about declarations, I think this is very important. There was a time after the release of 26.4 and before we updated the declarations in Jamf Pro, where this feature was available in macOS, but not in the Jamf Pro UI. And we are now in a different time. The 27 platforms from Apple are in beta, and they have released a whole bunch of new declarations and features that we will be able to manage in macOS and iOS 27 when they come out in the fall, that we can test in the betas, but they're not available in the Jamf Pro UI yet because they're still in beta. And if you want to test those and work with those already in your macOS 27 beta testing environment, there's a tool from Jamf Concepts that I want to introduce here. It's been around for a while, but it is very, very useful. DDM Explorer will load down all the descriptions from Apple about these declarations and settings and visualize them in a nice way. And I can't just explore which new features are there because there's a button where I can switch between the current ones and the, in this case, 27 beta ones. I can actually put together a full declaration in the JSON format. So I can get the declaration type that I need, and I can fill in some values, and it will build the JSON for me that I can then take and move into Jamf Pro, into the custom declaration area of blueprints, and I paste the JSON, and I paste the declaration type, and that way I can already use beta declarations for macOS and iOS 27 today in your beta testing. So DDM Explorer is a really great tool to go forward with that. The last but not least enrollment option that I really want to introduce here, Mischa showed it earlier already in his video, is Platform SSO, or more specifically, Simplified Platform SSO at Enrollment. That's the full name from Apple, bit of a mouthful. Platform SSO itself has been around for a while as an extension to SSO, and it allows us to connect a user on the device, the local account, with their identity on the identity provider. But so far, it's always been a bit of a complicated setup. I have to log in with a local account at least once, connect that to the identity, and from then on, Platform SSO will do the job. Starting in macOS 26, we got the Platform SSO at enrollment, where the very first user at enrollment, like Mischa showed earlier in the demo, will be constructed from the IDP, will be connected to the IDP account, and we get the SSO tokens so that ongoing logins into web services and applications will be much simpler. The workflow depends a bit on your IDP, but they can handle device and user registration in one go. You shouldn't get multiple logins anymore. Depending on your configuration, you still might. But if you optimize the configuration, you should get down to a single username password exchange. Especially with so-called passwordless workflows, where the IDP is handled by passkeys, which will be stored in the secure enclaves and protected with Touch ID and the local password. Password sync is still possible, but it's really not recommended anymore. I really recommend looking up the Microsoft documentation that talks about the possible configurations, and they strongly recommend going passwordless on the IDP and having a local PIN code, if you will, to protect the file vault and the secure enclave. Whether Platform SSO works or not depends on the identity provider. Okta was early out of the gate last September, very shortly after the release of 26.0. We worked with them very closely to get that working, both in Jamf Pro and with Okta Verify. Microsoft took a little longer with Entra ID. Company Portal was finally updated into general availability with Platform SSO support in May earlier this year. It is there, it works. You should start testing and implementing this. There are a few big identity providers missing here. They haven't supported Platform SSO until now, and they don't yet support the simplified Platform SSO at enrollment. There is one solution that might be able to help. Canoe Software has a tool called XPSSO, or I think it's supposed to be pronounced Expresso, which can proxy into your identity provider and provide the Platform SSO functionality that way. So you set up Platform SSO against Expresso, and that will proxy into your identity provider. There's also an open source identity solution called Keycloak, and the University of Oslo has actually built a Platform SSO app, fully functional, for that open source identity solution. I don't expect many people here to use Keycloak, though if you do, let me know afterwards. But I just think it's super impressive that an open source solution in a university can build a tool within a few weeks that big companies that are identity providers will take months or just don't build at all. These are the Platform SSO solutions that I'm aware of so far. The big ones, obviously, Okta and Microsoft with Entra ID and Company Portal. There's a few tips that we have learned while testing and debugging Platform SSO that I did want to share. The first of all, that the simplified Platform SSO at enrollment changed the macOS enrollment workflow a bit. And you might have noticed and thought the enrollment workflow, the first steps after I hit enroll, they seem to take longer on macOS 26, even when you're not using Platform SSO, and especially when you're using Platform SSO. That's because there's more things going on here that the system is waiting for to fall into place. One of the things that is really great is that the Bootstrap token, the token that allows the management server to talk with File Vault and the File Vault key and things like that, is created when you hit the enroll button and escrowed into the server. Before, with macOS 15 and older, it was created when the user was first created. And we had this in-between time where things might go wrong and we couldn't send MDM commands down to the device. Especially we couldn't send a wipe command down to the device and it would obliterate and I had to do a full reinstall rather than just a nice erase install which goes quickly. So with macOS 26 that changes. As soon as the enroll button is clicked, the server should receive the Bootstrap token and I can send MDM commands which can speed up test cycles very, very quickly. If you have a managed local account created in pre-stage, we have an escape patch because your Platform SSO configuration might be wrong and then you're stuck in Setup Assistant creating the first user and can't go on because you don't know what to do. You can then hit Command Q in Setup Assistant and it will take you to the login window and you can log in with the managed admin account. Then you can gather logs, look at the configurations, do some more debugging, wipe the machine, and start over. Also, very, very useful tip. Apple is not done with Platform SSO. This year at WWDC, in beginning of June, they introduced a few features that will be coming down with macOS 27. For one thing, we can require Touch ID as an addition to the local password to unlock File Vault when a machine is rebooted or updated. So in addition to the password, we can require Touch ID to be able to unlock a device. They also extended multi-factor authentication from the IDP to the File Vault unlock screen. So in addition to the local password, we can ask for IDP multi-factor authentication, the passcode, the authenticator app, things like that already at the File Vault unlock screen. There's a thing called authenticated guest mode, which is for shared devices that you can set up with Platform SSO, where a person can log in with their IDP credentials, have a session, and then log out, and the account that was created will be immediately deleted for shared device mode. That wasn't able in macOS 26 to do with File Vault enabled. With macOS 26, we can use that with File Vault. It's great to see that Apple is further iterating on Platform SSO, just making it better and better. I have a wish list that I will give them soon and hope they will implement it next year in macOS 28. We will see. So those are some enrollment options. Some of them you might already be using. Some of them you might have heard about and forgotten. Some of them might have been new to you. And I think together with tools like Setup Manager and what we're going to talk about next, this can make a really great enrollment workflow.
And believe it or not, this is still a part of the enrollment workflow, right? We have so much options during this process. But are we done yet, right? Is it all what it is? We don't think so, but we built something nice for you guys, which we can show you. I also promise you this was a lot of information what the enrollment workflows can have. From now on, it will be more fun. So I hope you will like it. But before we get there, we built something like setup checklist. Who knows about this already? That's awesome. I think you're all in the community, I think, Mac admins, right? That's very cool. Why I'm saying this before, because I want to have another question. And I look at this lady, and she looks a little bit confused. And this lady is representing our end users. And why does she look so confused? Because Apple's privacy policies. We cannot control those prompts anymore. It's very nice. I think the top one is very known, right? Allowing the meeting software to connect to your screen and your audio. It's a very privacy-focused workflow, but it's a productivity killer, right? Call support, I need to do this. Imagine if you go to your first meeting and you're the host and you want to share your screen and you need to do this. And even worse, you need to reboot the software. So everybody drops off. Nobody wants that, right? And our support engineer explaining what they need to do. That is horrible, that's terrible. But also setting the default browser, right? It's a user consent. And I think in 27 there will be more privacy stuff. And here we step in with Jamf setup checklist. And I will give the hands over to Armin.
So one of the things that Apple introduced in macOS Sequoia was a new welcome screen. I don't know if you remember, it had these nice Sequoia forests with welcome on top of it. Looked beautiful, nice animation. You couldn't modify it. You couldn't customize it. You couldn't say, welcome to my great organization. You couldn't put your fonts in there. So we thought, let's build a welcome screen. That should be the first interaction. We can customize the background. We can customize the text. We can customize the font and the colors if you want to. So that's the first thing that the user sees when they would get to the desktop on if you're using setup checklist. When the user hits continue, ooh. Who remembers this? Yeah, you're old like me.
Yes, we're dinosaurs.
Hit the mute button. So we can play a video. A welcome video could be a welcome from your company, however you want to do it. Sound is optional. You can say muted by default. You can even turn off autoplay by default. The user can click play if they want to have it. But we can have a welcome video back. We can have a text there that describes what's going on here. And then the user when the video is over, can hit continue for the next step. Yeah, this is the boring legal part. Some of us have to do it, some kind of policy or end-user license agreement. We can switch the language here, so we can provide this in different languages if necessary. I do prefer to read English over Japanese, and when I scroll down, I can click I agree. This is stored, the moment the user clicks I agree, a ticket is stored on the device that you can read with an extension attribute or some other process if you want to document this. The user can also save a copy when they want to. And then we continue, and then we're getting away from the legal part to the more fun part. We want to brand the machine. We want to give it the idea that this is a corporate machine, but we want to do it in a fun way. So we provide a bunch of wallpapers that the user can go through. These could even be light, dark, aware wallpapers that adapt depending on whether the user is using light or dark mode. Going with this one for now. So the user gets some choice, we can have a bit of fun, but we also have some corporate branding going on here. Oh. Demo gods are not on my side
Live
today.
demos here.
Yeah.
It is not the internet because it's not connected to the internet, but we can start it up again.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's also, by the way, beta, so we need testers. So.
There we go.
Yeah, just listen.
Next step is the dock. There are plenty of tools out there that allow you to customize the dock. Many of them have a few downsides. They're pretty complicated to use, and there's always this moment where the dock reboots and the wallpaper flashes because we need to kill the dock and the system UI server for the dock to reload properly. So we thought we can do this in a more fun way and also make the user feel like they're a bit more in control. So I have two options here. I can add the recommended icons to the dock. The user can maintain the default Apple dock and add the recommended, or I can say I want just the recommended dock. You can control this. You can give the user more or less options here, but let's go with this, and when the user hits replace, the dock restarts, but the user understands that the dock moving around and doing weird things comes from them pressing this button and choosing a different dock. We all want to set different default browsers. Very few organizations work with Safari for various reasons. We have Edge here, but this could be Chrome or whatever. And however, when we switch the default browser in some automated way, the user gets a dialog to confirm that, because there has been malware in the past that has abused this. And this is the dialog. And we want the user to click Use Edge here. This dialog comes from the system. We can't change it. But when the user thinks they're smart and hits Keep Safari, they can't continue. So we bug them basically until they say, yeah, okay, I'm going to use Edge. And then they can continue. You can configure this any way you want. If you want or need to be less draconic here, this is the second example. Like for the Mail app, we want to give them a choice. Do you want to use Mail? Do you want to use Outlook? They have a choice. They can continue right away and keep Mail if they want to, or they can select Outlook and move on. Now this is the important one. We need the user to enable screen sharing and recording for Microsoft Teams, maybe for multiple apps. We're only doing it for one here, but you could do this for multiple apps. We have a nice movie playing here on the side that is kind of demonstrating to the user what they're supposed to do, and we have a status here. And if the user again thinks that this is too annoying, even though we opened the settings app for them to the right place where they can click that button and they close it, it just reopens again in front of them until they go in and click that button to enable the screen sharing. Then they get the green check mark and can continue. So we've guided the user through the first steps to set up their machine. We've made sure that certain critical settings where Apple requires us to have user interaction were performed, and we had a bit of fun along the way as well. There's a ton more you can do here, but we only have so much time. This gives us the management, identity, and security that Mischa mentioned earlier. We can make sure that the device, right after enrollment, is fully managed, the user identity is verified and set up correctly, and all the security pieces that we need are in place before the user actually does the first real work. But that also means that we get to the desktop very quickly.
So we get from device ready during the enrollment workflow, and then we get user ready, secure and productive. So the end user don't need to think about all the things what we need to take care of. They need to think about their work. And that's what we do here. So you saw what setup checklist is. There's multiple steps what you can do. Here's a brand list of it. But the most important thing is you don't need to print out the guide or have a Wikipedia where they can look for to see the instructions on the first day at work. It's a simple guide on the system, like the video in the screen sharing. Do we read? Do our end users read? No, just a simple video, show them what they need to do and they will do it. Very simple. What we didn't mention yet, the application is just, to use Setup Manager and Setup Checklist is both a deployment of an application controlled by a configuration. So no scripting language needed. It's simple and straightforward. And now you think like, hey, I know where I can download it, right? Those are the links. But how do I get started? Well, luckily, a big partner for us in the US literally pushed this online yesterday evening. This is the complete guide how to set up for the first time Setup Manager and Setup Checklist. So this is a great resource for you to get started, right? So take a picture if you want. No, but there's also a connection where you can download Setup Checklist later. What you've just witnessed was a new beta version of Setup Checklist because we introduced user license agreement. And as you witnessed, it crashed. Bug, what was it? I don't know. Something happened.
It was the heat, the network. We blame the network.
It was the network. Well, we didn't use the network. Anyways, now what we want from you, because this is one thing we think you need, right? We want your voice. All those steps, all your workflows, all your situations, we don't know. So try and take our betas and feedback to us what you need and what's going wrong, right? We need your help here. And all this
is part of Jamf concepts. Setup Checklist and Setup Manager. If you didn't take a picture of the links earlier and can't remember them, just remember this one link, which is concepts.jamf.com. It will appear in a moment. This is a website that we built to share engineering-driven projects. So as consulting engineers and system engineers, and sometimes even the support engineers and other people, we have a lot of customer contact, and we see like, oh, I can build a custom solution for this customer here. And then we realize, yeah, this is not just for this customer. This can be useful for everyone. And last year, around this time, we launched the website concept.jamf.com to gather these and make them available to all of you for free. And the explosion has been amazing. I don't know how many, it's more than 40, 50 projects on there right now. A few of them are really great. I really recommend. I talked about DDM Explorer earlier. There's Jamf CLI, which is fairly new, which gives me command line access to all of the Jamf APIs, including the new platform API. There is Jamf Extender, which extends the Jamf interface in the web browser with some really cool features. I truly recommend checking out concepts.jamf.com. And if you don't remember where to find Setup Manager and Setup Checklist, that is where.
And this website is literally built by Jams for Jams, right? Free to use. And with that,
thank you very much for your attention.
Armin, I have one request, and I want the lights on, because I think we need to take a selfie. And maybe you guys can stand up or use your hands up or something. Can be the lights on? Because this is literally the first time I presented with him for you. Here, oh, there are people. Hey!
Yay!
Woo! Well,
Thank you very much. We're around for questions, so don't be shy.
Yeah. And thank you again for having us. Oh, we have time, yeah, of course, if you have questions. So we have questions now, so open up the floor.
We have 2 minutes, so if any question in the room? Yeah, we have one there.
Hi, Armin. Question on JAMF Setup Manager. So you basically have a checklist, right? For example, Google Chrome, installation. I saw a few more applications. So I assume a policy, basically it's a JAMF policy which runs for installation of the apps, right?
It can be a Jamf policy. It can be a installer action if you want to use that. It can be installed through Jamf app installers, and Setup Manager can't trigger that, but it can watch for the app when it arrives. There are some challenges with the timing here. I would recommend using a policy or installer.
So for any reason, if it fails, would it stop there and, will it skip for the next policy? Or what would happen for any reason if the policy
If the
execution
policy
fails?
fails, Setup Manager will show that with a big red X, and it will continue installing the others. You can set up your policies in a way that they retry, but chances are, if they fail this early, they will fail on a retry. So either you have a tech monitoring that and say, okay, let's start over, or you build your policies in a way that they fix themselves later with smart groups and say, hey, Google Chrome is not installed yet. I should try reinstalling on the next check-in.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, one more question. Okay, Rudresh.
I have the mic, I'm sorry. Yeah, hi. I have a question on the file vault key. Consider like we give the file vault key to the user to recover the password sometime. We don't have something in Jamf that the file vault key is rotated. Because once a key is given, like it surpasses security apart from that.
So you should not give the recovery key that is stored in Jamf Pro. That is not intended for use with the end user. When you see the screen I showed earlier, when you use the file vault setup at pre-stage, the user gets their own personal recovery key. There is no built-in automation to reload that. You can build automations with Jamf with the API to pull the recovery key out of Jamf and then rotate it, because you don't want to rotate it immediately. You want to have some time before it rotates. We also can build automations that rotates the user recovery key on disk, but you have to communicate it to the user somehow. These are very customized workflows. It would be a good feature request to ask for that.
Thank you.
Yep. So it's on the checklist. Can I customize it based on the department?
Which one?
The setup checklist.
Setup checklist, yes. Setup checklist, by that time, Setup Manager or whatever your enrollment workflow is, will have run several recons, and the department is in Jamf Pro, and then you can scope the profile for a setup checklist depending on the department.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again.
Right, a big round of applause for Armin and Mischa.
Thank you, Bhagat.